For decades, amateur radio operators exchanged small decorated postcards to confirm they had made contact with someone on the other side of the world. These were called QSL cards, and at their peak, they connected hundreds of thousands of operators across more than 190 countries long before the internet made that kind of global reach feel ordinary. That was the 20th century. By 2025, the bureaus that routed these cards were closing. The postage that carried them had nearly doubled, and the newest awards in the hobby no longer recognized paper confirmations at all. But this story does not start with the decline. It starts with a single postcard mailed from a radio station in Buffalo, New York, all the way back in 1916. The name QSL comes from an old radio Q code, meaning I confirm receipt of your transmission. In practice, a QSL card was a written confirmation that two amateur radio stations had actually made contact, typically printed on a postcard carrying the bare essentials of the exchange. Both operators' call signs, the date and time recorded in coordinated universal time, the frequency band used, the mode of transmission, and a signal report grading the quality of the received signal. By 1919, an operator in Akron, Ohio, had developed a standardized card format, and by 1922, the practice had crossed the Atlantic to England. From there, the International Amateur Radio Union built an entire bureau network so that operators could bundle their outgoing cards through a central hub in each country, saving themselves the cost of mailing each confirmation individually. For most of the 20th century, this system ran smoothly, and the cards themselves became a point of pride, often featuring custom artwork, photos of antenna towers, or illustrations of the operator's home country. What changed was the arrival of two digital platforms that made the physical card unnecessary for its original purpose. In 1998, a service called eQSL launched online and allowed amateurs to exchange confirmations digitally, cutting the turnaround time from weeks or months down to roughly a single day. By its own published statistics, eQSL has since grown to over 1.4 billion logged confirmations from more than 600,000 user accounts across 350 countries. Then in 2003, the American Radio Relay League launched a system called Logbook of the World, which cross-matches uploaded contact logs automatically and declares a confirmation electronically whenever both sides of a contact agree. Logbook of the World has since processed over 2.1 billion contacts. But here's the detail that made this shift irreversible. The ARRL's own DXCC Awards program, the most prestigious achievement system in amateur radio, only accepts Logbook of the World as a valid electronic confirmation method. Other digital platforms like eQSL are explicitly excluded. And the newest tier of the program, the DXCC Trident Award, introduced in 2025, confirms contacts exclusively through Logbook of the World credits, with no option to submit a paper card alongside a plaque order at all. The hobby's most coveted new award had formally moved on from paper. What comes next is the part that still frustrates a lot of longtime operators, because the economics of mailing a QSL card were turning against them at the same time. The same postal infrastructure that had made QSL cards practical in the first place was now making them increasingly expensive to send. When the United States Postal Service introduced the Forever stamp in 2007, it cost 41 cents. By 2020, that had climbed to 55 cents, and by July 2025, it reached 78 cents, with a further increase to 82 cents, confirmed for July 2026. For international mail, the situation was steeper still, with a global Forever stamp for a 1-ounce letter now running $1.70. For an amateur who regularly exchanged cards with contacts overseas, that math added up fast. That's the kind of cost creep that quietly hollows out a tradition without anyone noticing until the mailbox stays empty. This cost pressure alone might have been survivable, but what was happening to the bureau system at the same time made things considerably worse. The institutional infrastructure behind QSL cards was contracting from multiple directions at once. The IARU, the international body coordinating the bureau network, acknowledged in its own policy documents that the cost of shipping card packages internationally had risen dramatically, and that large-scale radio expeditions had burdened smaller bureaus with stacks of undeliverable cards, pushing some to shut down entirely. The same documents cited environmental concerns and the rising use of electronic systems as compounding pressures, noting that computer-generated cards had flooded bureaus with unwanted volume. The closures were already playing out concretely. Singapore's QSL Bureau shut down in February 2025, and Bermuda's closed at the end of the 2024. In the United States, the ARRL changed how it funded its incoming bureaus, starting in January 2025, requiring each regional bureau to cover its own operating costs directly from users rather than relying on central subsidies. In the United Kingdom, the Radio Society of Great Britain outsourced its bureau's card sorting to Germany's National Society, which runs semi-automated processing to manage the workload. Some bureaus still operate at meaningful scale, with one U.S. regional bureau describing as many as 100,000 overseas cards arriving per year, but the overall trajectory was unmistakable. And the timing of what happened next made the situation even more complicated.
Look at this section.
In May 2024, the ARRL suffered a serious cyberattack that knocked Logbook of the World offline for weeks. Cybercriminals infiltrated the organization's network in what the FBI categorized as a unique ransomware incident, compromising internal systems and leaving hundreds of thousands of operators unable to log or confirm contacts electronically. The ARRL ultimately paid a $1 million ransom to recover its data, and later confirmed through breach notifications that attackers may have acquired personal information from roughly 150 employees. Logbook of the World came back online on July 1st, 2024, but the backlog of delayed DXCC applications and unprocessed contact confirmations took months to fully clear, well into 2025. If you are wondering what happens when the digital replacement for paper goes dark at the same time the paper system is crumbling, that was the answer. There is a reason this conversation still matters to the amateur radio community today, and it has to do with what the cards have become now that their original purpose has been absorbed by software. It's worth separating the decline of QSL cards from the health of amateur radio itself, because those are not the same claim. Recent figures put the number of licensed amateur radio operators in the United States at roughly 740,000, which is not a shrinking population. The hobby is alive, with ham radio clubs and field day events still drawing new participants every year. But the way operators confirm their contacts has shifted permanently, and paper QSL cards have moved from being a functional necessity to something closer to a collector's item. A secondary market has grown on platforms like eBay, where collectors specifically seek out pre-1950s cards for their graphic design, their vintage printing techniques, and the glimpse they offer into early radio culture, with early 1920s postcards identifiable by their short 2 to 4 character call signs, drawing the highest interest and prices. Modern operators who still want a physical card increasingly use online request tools where a contacted station charges a small fee, commonly around $2, for a direct mail card sent after the fact. Today's paper, eQSL, is something you actively seek out and sometimes pay for, not something exchanged automatically after every contact. eQSL cards weren't killed by any single event or any single technology. They were pressed from every direction simultaneously by digital systems that absorbed their credentialing function, by postal rates that doubled their cost, by bureaus that lost funding and volunteers, and even briefly by a cyberattack that proved the digital alternative wasn't bulletproof either. But what endures is the thing no electronic log can replicate. A hand-designed postcard from the other side of the planet, carrying proof that for a few minutes on a specific frequency, two strangers connected through nothing but radio waves in open air.